You know, when you are sort of in a position of power, it's very difficult, particularly in the world, as I've often said here on the show, with television. Sorry, we'll have a lovely wave. Are you all right? Sorry, forgetting myself then. You know, it's like you have to focus. I know, well, I can see you telling me off now. Focus, Neil. Well, you know, I've only had one cup of coffee so far. By the way, I must just point that out. I don't know if you're like me. I only have one coffee. Yes. I always find two is just too much. After that, nice pots of tea. Not as sort of acidic, are they? Yeah, are you with me, or are you just a coffee drinker? I'd love to know. Do we all still consume so much coffee? But not in shops, it's too expensive, isn't it? I know. Let me get back to your story of the day. This is rather alarming when you think, because as I said, when you've had a television career and you are paid, particularly by this lady, Laura Kuenssberg, over £300,000 a year to be their chief sort of go-to person for political stories, you can understand why things may or may not look particularly good. And Laura, you see, this is the problem, had been promoted to the Sunday morning, the prestigious Sunday morning slot. Kuenssberg on Sunday, taking over by such stalwarts previously as the likes of Andrew Marr and of course Sir David Frost, a particular favourite with so many people. Now what's interesting is earlier this week, and for the last couple of weeks in fact, Laura was promoting the fact that she was going to be sitting down with the former British Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Boris Johnson. And the reason behind this was the fact that he's got a brand new book, which we've mentioned before, called Unleashed. And the idea was a sit down one-to-one, go through the book, all that sort of stuff, you know. And this was absolutely incredible when you think, because this is on BBC One prime time, so you couldn't get better publicity for the book. But what's then developed was, while they were trailing and all that sort of stuff, Laura went and made a bit of a faux pas. And this is the problem. You see, what happened was, according to her, on a social media post, she posted the questions that she was going to be asking Boris Johnson to him. Yeah, right, as a mistake, right? And basically the bosses at the BBC said this is now an untenable interview because he would know what you were going to ask him. Surely you could say, no, I'm just going to change the questions, don't worry, those were the first ones, scrap it. But no, according to Laura and her team, the whole thing then had to be scrapped. And this is now basically sent around a sort of conspiracy theory as to whether she didn't want to do it, whether Mr. Johnson didn't want to do it. Whichever way, you know, it's starting to rack up. Now, obviously, you know, there's two things there. One has to say, if she can then email, send, whatever, to a former British Prime Minister, connections about that. More importantly, of course, for Laura Kuenssberg, according to that source, she's now terrified that she may find herself with the axe, as ever we have to say, allegedly. This is because the vultures are circulating who also want her job and will highlight this as a mega mistake. Now, I'll throw it open to you. I'm a little bit in two minds here. I would suggest that, you know, I can understand a slip, as it were, but surely with all the questions that you would have had, you would have checked everything through, and more importantly, who you're sending them to. These are highly sort of volatile questions and highly secretive, so wouldn't you check where you're sending it through to? Seems a little bit odd behind the scenes, but either way, according to a very well placed source, Laura's wondered if the clock is ticking on her now once illustrious BBC career. As ever, it's a developing story. I'll let you know when I know more. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.